Excellent. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cascade Natural Gas's Conservation Advisor Group meeting for April 15th, 2026. My name is Caleb Reimer. I manage Cascade's energy efficiency programs in Washington. Today, we've got a relatively short agenda with a lot of our common topics, some regulatory and other program updates. So I definitely welcome comments, questions, feedback, ad hoc topics. Whatever they may be, please don't be a stranger. Just raise your hand as standard and we can address them accordingly. The whole point of these meetings is to share how we're doing, progress updates, but also get feedback and input to help us become better over time as well. So with that, I'll get started with the meeting. I should also mention, we'll typically do, in the past, we've done a roll call. In lieu of that, we'll change up a little bit, and in the future what we'll be doing is asking participants if they have a question, comment, concern to raise their hand and be called upon to provide their input. And my request would be, if you're comfortable, to turn your camera on. If not, that's just fine. But to also just say your name as well as your association, organization, affiliation, whatever it may be, just so everyone is aware. Starting with our safety moment, we've got a coping with stress topic. You can read on the screen here. I think stress is a really great thing to think about, at least on an annual basis. There's some recommendations here of what to do about stress. Of course, we all know some of the negative impacts that happen with stress. There are some positives, of course, but some of the negative ones are things that we're trying to minimize here. There's recommendations like taking breaks from reading, watching, or listening to stories, social media, those sorts of things which may cause stress. You should also take care of your mind and body. There's some recommendations here to take deep breaths, meditate, or stretch. I think some people went pattern, which I think is a great method. Eating healthy, well-balanced meals. Get plenty of sleep, whatever plenty means to you, of course. Take time to exercise regularly and avoid some of those things which can impact your stress levels. Some general reminders to take time to unwind. I think everyone deserves that. It's that stress, rest, growth pattern that we can all benefit from. And also find ways to participate in some activities you enjoy, particularly if they're outside, get some sunshine, some fresh air, beneficial to everyone. Okay, next topic. As standard, we've got a review of our Q1 action items from the January meeting. There were 2 topics which have since been followed up on. I'll provide just a brief summary, which we can elaborate more on if anyone would like. We had 2 items. The first was discussing the 2025 commercial industrial program shortfalls. In summary, we had a meeting with our WTC staff members and our commercial industrial implementers to discuss some of those items which have been talked about over the past 2 years. At a high level, we've been discussing things like interest rate changes, electrification, and those things that go along with that, which impact natural gas programs, and of course, returns for some of the commercial industrial investors, as well as some, I would say, items that dropped off of our program list. One major one being the Whidbey Island Naval Station, which was a massive energy efficiency project, which got dropped with a change in administration. Those are some of the items there. The second topic that was addressed were changes in the 2026 residential program budget. This is something that's pretty easily explained, but is quite fluid, as we'll see under the next section here with the residential update. In summary, we build our residential program budgets and our biome conservation plan as a direct corollary of the therm savings goal multiplied by our anticipated average dollars per therm in rebates, plus administrative expenses, which are relatively fixed. And our program therm saving goal decreased, which led to a direct decrease in the program budget expectations. However, as we'll see here in a little bit, our program is performing beautifully. So we are anticipating exceeding that budget by greater than 20% at this time. I'll move on to the next section here, which I believe is our portfolio update. We'll start with the commercial industrial program, move on to the residential program, and then have some updates on our low-income weatherization program. I see Brian's got the camera on, which is perfect. Brian, I'll kick it over to you, sir.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Brian Farnsworth. I'm the program manager with TRC Companies. We have been acquired by WSP Global, so I'm going to mention that later in the presentation, but I just wanted to mention that briefly. As always, these updates have not gone through our rigorous end-of-year verification, so please keep that in mind. But through quarter one of 2026, we have achieved 50,000 therms, and we provided around $175,000 in incentives to commercial and industrial customers. That 50,000 therms is across 22 natural gas saving measures, and some of the larger projects and some of the larger customers that we've worked with to date this year include Kitsap Juvenile Detention and Free Range Farms. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a nice graphic just that shows what we've done this year so far to date, and then as a comparison to what 2025 looked like. You can see that through quarter one, we had achieved 13,000 therms in 2025, off to a much better start in 2026 at 50,000 therms. In terms of percentage to annual goal, we had achieved, as of this time last year, 3% of our annual goal. Keep in mind the annual goal last year was 443,000 therms relative to 258,000 therms this year. But in terms of percentages, that was 3% to goal in 2025 and 19% to goal in 2026. And we'll discuss some of our larger program goals later. But one of our goals this year was sort of avoiding the hockey stick effect of achieving a large percentage of our therms later in the year. So this year, one of our goals was to really kick off the year with high therm savings, and you can see that we're on track to doing that thus far at about 20% to goal through the end of March. Next slide, please. So this graphic on top is a representation of not only last year, but this year also, and it just shows our tracking to goal, where we'd like to be, the trend line to goal, and you can see with the dark blue line there that we are on track to meet the goal so far this year, and hopefully we're projected to continue doing so throughout the year, but we look forward to future CAG meetings to show our progress. And then in terms of the biennial therms forecast, you can see that 50,000 therms number there, and then the 509,998 therms to achieve our biennial goal. So we will continue to track that and report back to you. Next slide, please.
Reminder as well for everyone on the call, the biennium just restarted on January 1st, which is why you just see a sliver there. I would say, agreeing with Brian, that we're right on track there to hit the biennial goal.
Thanks, Caleb. All right, here we're looking at, I would say, our largest therms savings measures. You can see that boilers and then custom other. I think why you're seeing custom other as opposed to a particular custom category is because this year we have seen a large percentage of custom projects come in the form of greenhouse heat curtains. It's something that's been new to our territory. It's a technology that we've seen largely coming from California. So we're excited to see greenhouses participating in this measure. But I believe all of those therm savings that you're seeing there in the custom other category are from greenhouse heat curtains. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an overview of our outreach and our marketing efforts. So I just tried to pick some of our largest marketing efforts that just give a kind of a snapshot of what we've done so far this year. I'm just going to briefly go through each of these. Every year, we do choose 2 to 3 case studies to feature just to show our commercial customers other projects that are being done, see if it's applicable to other customers that they could follow suit. This year, we looked at a heating system upgrade for Josephine Caring Community. So we'll be having that out shortly. Let's see. In terms of traditional advertising, some of the organizations that we've continued to advertise with in years past, Tri-Cities Journal of Business, Yakima Herald, El Sol de Yakima, and Kitsap Daily News. So traditional advertising, print and digital that are slated for 2026. We also have a postcard that's going to be mailed to 3,200 Zone 2 customers. If you're not familiar with Zone 2, that is what we term our Kitsap County, our Kitsap Peninsula customers. And we are targeting them because it is an underserved market for us, and it's an area that we would like to see some growth in terms of participation in the program. So we're hoping that postcard is going to help out. We did do an e-blast to customers announcing the increased incentives. So we're hoping that customers are going to see that incentives are going up and want to participate in the program to take advantage of that. In mid-March, we participated in some Zone 3, which is Eastern Washington area of our service territory, with some WattSmart Trade Ally training events. So one of these was in Walla Walla and one was in Yakima. And one of our BD representatives, Todd Blackman, did those presentations, and I think those went over well. And lastly, we have placed a billboard in Bremerton. Again, that's in Zone 2, which is an underserved market. So we're hoping that the billboard will be effective. We've done this in Bellingham also. It's a new effort that we've looked into to add to our marketing portfolio. And so we will report back on the effectiveness of the billboard. Next slide, please. So here I've just taken some snapshots of some of our marketing and outreach just so you can get an idea of the cohesiveness of the branding and what it looks like. You can see that a lot of the advertising is around our incentives increasing. So we're hoping that customers are going to see those and jump on these opportunities to upgrade their commercial and industrial facilities. Take a look at those briefly. As always, open to any questions if you have them or any feedback.
And it's a great point. If anyone on the call has any feedback, ideas, suggestions, outreach opportunities, send them my way at caleb.reimer@cngc.com. Warmly welcome them. Wesley.
Hi, sorry, I had to flip my laptop open to get the camera on. Hi, Wesley Franks, Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission, regulatory analyst. Thanks for this overview on marketing. Just two simple questions. I saw on the last slide that one of the newspapers that you targeted was Yakima El Sol. Just kind of guessing that that might be a Spanish-focused newspaper. Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess my question is how much of the outreach has been in Spanish in addition to English? I'm like you said, the heat curtains were a huge other category, assuming that that targets mostly agricultural customers, which large swath of that are Spanish speaking, I think. So yeah, just wondering how much effort's gone into multiple languages there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We consider Spanish speaking an underserved community, and it's definitely one of our targets. So yes, we have made several efforts there. Obviously, yes, you pointed out that particular publication is Spanish speaking and is in line with our desire for reaching Spanish speaking customers. So we have also translated all of our documents, our forms, application form, brochure to Spanish. And we also have a representative on our team who was doing business development last year, who is a Spanish-speaking employee of ours who's going to be fielding all of those calls so that there's no language barrier if we do have any follow-up or any program contact that they're actually speaking to someone that can speak Spanish. So hopefully that provides a little bit of an overview. And then in terms of the agriculture, I don't know that that's necessary. Yeah, you're probably right. That could impact Spanish speaking more than not, but I think that's just part of a larger focus on greenhouses in particular. But if there is any tie into Spanish speaking customers, we would certainly welcome that in terms of an underserved community.
Wesley, I could also add on the residential side, I agree with everything Brian said on the commercial side. Residential side, very similar commitment and focus for us. Same thing with having all of our program documents, incentive sheets, those sorts of things converted into Spanish for us. Also having a lot of these outreach materials, inserts, those sorts of things being in both English and Spanish, and hopefully using some targeted strategic marketing strategies to get into the right audiences. The other thing is that we have Noemi Ortiz on our team who will be speaking here in a little bit. She's helping lead some efforts to have our full website have full language integration capabilities, not just for Spanish, but for alternative languages, and making sure things are easy to navigate as possible for people of all language choices. So definitely commitment for us here, very important.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the updated information. I know we've talked about the language plans before, so yeah, I appreciate the update on that, the reminders for some of the things. One one more question. Have you looked into social media advertisements at all? I know other companies have looked at, targeted Facebook ads. What are the other platforms like Instagram, things like that? Maybe not a big driver potentially for commercial, but assume some business owners are also on social media. So I guess are some of these examples going to those places as well? And yeah, if not, are you thinking of social media as another avenue for advertising?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I made a note because I don't have this information in this presentation. But what I'll do is send some information over to Caleb, and he can provide that to you. Because I just want to confirm with our marketing team. But yes, we have done advertising through Facebook, and we have also utilized Cascade's LinkedIn page. And so I will provide examples of what we've done there, and I'll send those over to Caleb, and he can provide them to you.
Yeah. In Wesley, similarly on the residential side, we have a full strategy we're implementing, actually currently creating the material with our updated program plan documents as of March 15th. Same thing, English, Spanish, using targeted marketing strategies throughout Facebook, Meta, all those different avenues that we have working. Juan Diego Gonzalez, our outreach coordinator, is leading that effort. He's doing a great job with it.
Yeah, appreciate it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Great questions. Thank you.
Are there any other topics? Otherwise, we've got just another slide or two for a commercial update. Keep moving.
Great, thank you. So I think this is our last slide. So I had mentioned that TRC Companies was acquired by WSP Global. In terms of the program impact, we do not anticipate any impact to the program. There's not going to be any staffing change, anything like that. It's mostly just going to be an administrative change on invoicing, that kind of thing. But I wanted to make you aware of that. Something that had come up in the past that was actually, I believe, a recommendation from the CAG was that we look into customer financing for commercial and industrial customers to see if there was any interest in there, possibly linking with a financing organization, or at least providing information for financing should any of our customers be interested in that. As a part of that, we determined that the first step might be to survey our commercial and industrial customers. We thought, would we reach out to the greater customer base, or what we ended up deciding on was any and everyone that applied to the program for an incentive in 2026, we would do a follow-up survey. And we put together a survey internally. We worked with Cascade Natural Gas on their input on survey questions. All that has been put together now and is going to be put into survey form. I'm going to be taking that on personally, so that any customers that applied in 2026 are going to be surveyed about financing, just to see, did you utilize financing? If financing was available, is it something that you would take advantage of in the future for future projects? So what we're going to do is we're going to, once the survey is available, which should be, I would say, in the next week at the latest, we're going to survey the customers that have applied so far in 2026, and then monthly, as we process incentives for customers, we're going to be following up with them with the survey questions. And once that's all prepared and our survey answers have been compiled, we are going to put together an analysis of that and report back to see if survey or if financing is of interest to customers and what we could put together in terms of resources for them. So we will report back on that as soon as that is developed for you. So if you had any other questions about surveys, please let us know, and financing, but that should be happening very soon. So we're excited about that, to see if that could lead to increased participation in the program if funding is an issue for any of our customers. And then let's see. Caleb had asked if we would address if higher incentives will drive, additional CNI program participation. I think it's too soon to say. It looks like it was a month ago today, March 15th, that those incentives were increased. I don't know that we have enough data to say if it's driven program participation yet. We believe it should. You can see that many of our marketing efforts are around, notifying customers that incentives are going up. But if we do feel like we have any information to show that it has driven additional participation, we will certainly report back on that. But we're definitely hopeful. 。  . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 .
。 . . 。 . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 .
So. So we can give it just a second if there's any questions. Otherwise, I think we're ready to move to the residential portion.
Yeah, Wesley.
Wesley again. Turn my
Yeah.
camera on. Um, yeah, so a quick clarifying follow-up on the survey. I'll just say that I like the sound of that. I appreciate the Cascade is looking into this and taking financing seriously to learn more on how it's working. The clarifying question, you might have said this, but if you could just say it again, the survey's launching in April, and then is it going to be on an ongoing basis that the survey's open? Is there a close date? You want to survey participants, but assuming there'll be more participants, yeah, I'm just wondering what the time frame of the survey would be.
Yeah, great question. I think the plan is any incentives that we've processed in 2026 to date, I'm going to be following up with each of those, seeing if they'll fill out the survey. And then in the future, monthly or every time that we process a projects for payment, essentially request, what I'm going to do is follow up with each of them. So I think the best way to answer that is to say likely monthly, and it will go through all of 2026. So any 2026 install date project, those customers will be surveyed, and then we'll report back at that time. So we will capture 1 year of program participants with the survey.
Yeah, looking forward to Q2 of 2027 to hear that. So thanks.
Yeah, definitely.
A bigger picture in terms of the idea, the timeline there. I think it's a great thing. I hope we get some great data from it. In terms of our biennial planning process, the timeline should work out pretty well. We'll be constructing our biennial conservation plan for the 2028 to 2029 calendar years, starting right around Q2 of 2027, like Brian mentioned. So I think the timeline will work out that it's something that we can learn from, incorporate, ask new questions as a part of the plan, whatever it may be. I like the timing of it. So looking forward to it as well, Brian.
All right, thank you.
We'll go next slide.
Looks like we did have one more slide. So essentially what we're looking at here is we're showing what our pipeline is. So the difference between our forecast, what we anticipate, what we've seen in prior years, and what's reasonable to expect. Our pipeline are actual applications that have been submitted to the program that we know they're going to come in this year, outside of, a cancellation or something. But these are the applications that we've received that should be closing in 2026. So we'll just run through these briefly. YMCA of Grays Harbor, 7,800 therms there. We have 4 Longview School District retro commissioning projects. And then as a follow-up to last year, I don't know if you remember, but we had a probably 8 or 9 Safeway and Hagen grocery store projects for refrigerated K-stores. And we have 3 of those remaining for 2026. And then Suspended Brands Belfair. So I had mentioned Free Range Farms was a greenhouse project for the heat curtains, and this is essentially an identical project. The Free Range Farms project was 16,000 therms, and you can see that Suspended Brands in Belfair is a similar greenhouse project with almost 22,000 therms. And then these projects are represented in a prior slide if you're interested in looking at that just to see what our pipeline is. But these actually show what projects are included in that pipeline for the year.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian, for the update.
Absolutely.
I just have one other quick topic on the commercial industrial side to share with the team. There's nothing formal here, just a verbal update. As Jesse and myself have been working alongside our commercial industrial implementer, TRC, I should say WSP Global at this point. We have some of our projects from the 2025 project year that got shifted into the 2026 project year. That's not yet represented on these numbers here, but it was a handful of projects that were quite large. So we do anticipate some of the forecasted numbers for 2026 going up and some of the previously called out numbers for 2025 going down. And it's just a simple matter of payment timing by a week or two rather than actual any savings implications. So that's something you'll likely see in the annual report draft, which will be coming to each of your way in about a month here. But we can talk about more of that later during our regulatory update section at the end of the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Next topic here. I see Jesse's on the line ready to go. We've got our residential program highlights. We've got less slides here on this, but quite a bit of information. And once again, we warmly welcome any input, questions, suggestions. whatever it may be. Jesse?
Thank you, Caleb. My name is Jesse Legault. I'm an energy efficiency analyst for Cascade Natural Gas. And this slide is presenting an unofficial recap of Q1 for 2026. So for our Q1, we saved 297,523 therms against an annual plan of 194,725 therms. So we are 153% to goal. And you can compare that to the next column as far as how we did in the same time frame for 2025. So that's January 1st through March 31st. And we're just going to keep sliding over. So for 2026 incentives, so far we have issued $4,472,684 in incentive rebates against an annual plan goal of $3,255,015. So we're 137% to goal. And again, compare that to how we did in 2025. And we are exceeding how we performed last year. So another banner year for the residential program. So some highlights. So for 2026, we have 297,000 therms saved. So compared to Q1 of 2025, that's an 86% increase. For total measures, we've processed 3,304 measures. That's a 62% increase over 2025. And the $4.4 million in issued incentives is 37% above what we did in Q1 of last year. And again, a compliments to our program delivery team. As the volume increases, we need to make sure that the pipeline runs smoothly, and our team is absolutely crushing it. So we can sit here for a minute so you can digest. There's a lot of data here, so definitely no rush, and we'll see if there's any questions.
I called this out during the first part of the meeting. It's just important to formally mention that we do anticipate exceeding 120% of our residential budget, and it's explicitly because of this fantastic performance. We're looking to be extremely cost effective, exceeding our goal in terms of incentive distributed as well as therm savings. It's fantastic work by the program delivery team, like Jesse mentioned, making sure that we're answering questions, facilitating the rebid process, and getting things out in a timely manner. It's also a major shout out to Stephanie Reed, who I see on the call, administering and facilitating our trade ally and point of sale ally program, where a majority of these therms are actually coming from, which is it's a transcendence in the program over the past couple of years. We're in that heyday moment right now where we've got the program running, implemented, and well managed, but there's still plenty of projects out there where the low-hanging fruit necessarily hasn't been fully picked, which is something that can occasionally be talked about in the industry. So we're really seeing some great things happen right now in this program.
And if there are no questions, I think we can go on to the next slide. This is a more granular look as far as individual measures and therms saved by each one. And you can see that the heavy hitter is the attic insulation. In attic insulation, we saved almost 200,000 therms in Q1. And this is 19 different measure types have been processed. And you can kind of see the individual therm savings by each one going in increasing order from top to bottom. So stuff like the furnace, 95% was almost 31,000. Prescriptive air sealing is a little over 17,000 therms saved. Floor insulation, just over 14,000, and duct sealing over 12,000. Those are the top 5 performers. Again, this is just pure therms saved by measure type. Again, a lot of good data here. Feel free to digest it. And if there are any questions, please let us know. See Wesley.
Thank you. One quick question. How do the incentives, I guess, correlate with individual measures? I know, yeah, so like whereas attic insulation is, giving you the most of your therms, is it also roughly receiving a greater proportion of the incentives? How does that stack up?
Caleb, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, the exact numbers, Wesley, but there is a correlation there between therms saved and dollars spent. So yes, attic insulation, I would be very confident, is a majority of our dollars spent. However, there's a reminder that attic insulation is also our most cost-effective measure, being both high therm saving, relatively low dollars, being in for this quarter, just $2 per square foot of insulation added. However, the therm saving is just fantastic. In our program plan, and I believe in our last interim report, we had a cost-effective ratio for this specific measure between the 5.0 to 7.0 ratio, meaning for each dollar spent, there's anticipated between $5 and $7 in return on value. Whereas a lot of these other measures, say furnaces, floor insulation, duct sealing, water heating, they're closer to that 1-to-4 ratio. So on average, you can think of attic insulation being that fantastic measure of both high therm savings, relatively low cost, where a home, say 1,000 square foot of attic space home is only a $2,000 rebate. But in this case, it could be right around 300 therms being saved just off mental math, whereas a furnace for similar rebate would be right around 80 therms saved. Very cost-effective measure. And please, those are all just ballpark numbers I'm recalling from building the plan up, but they're in the right neighborhood. Yeah, 1 second, Donald. Wesley, does that answer your question, or is there any corollaries there?
Oh yeah, no, it did. I gave a thumbs up, but that was helpful context. Yeah, appreciate it.
And once again, some of those information, like hopefully quoting close to correct, will be in that annual report document, which Jody Albert's working on, which we'll be distributing right around a month or so from now. Donald.
Sounds good. I won't quote you on the first one.
Yeah, thank you. It'll be close, I bet. Donald, I can't hear you right now.
No,
sorry.
no sound.
You're welcome to type your question if you'd like, or
Yeah.
The question is, how exactly are you calculating the therms saved by measure? I think there's two parts here. I'll go with the first part, and then Jesse can talk about the database that we're using to process the rebates. The first part of, first we have to estimate what these are from. That estimation process comes from our conservation potential assessment, which evaluates therm saving potential for the residential as well as commercial industrial programs. It's something we do every 2 years. We file each of them in June of odd years. So that's actually a topic coming up here. In that conservation potential assessment, we review things like the measure life for measures, what's currently out there in homes, how much is out there to be saved, and how much value could be saved from each furnace, smart thermostat, duct insulation, those sorts of things. That data for how many therms could be saved is a multiplication of things like measure life, what the precondition was before a post-install happened, as well as data that comes from particularly the Regional Technical Forum, which comes from the Northwest Power and Conservation Council in Washington. And then there's some other proprietary information and some evaluation, measurement, and verification of the programs done over the past few years using actual customers' billing data to inform those numbers. So these numbers on the screen are estimates. They are not, of course, the exact therms that will be saved over the lifespan of the measure. But the past few years of EMV results have said that these estimates are typically pretty darn close. So I think they're good estimates for us here. You can nod your head if that's close to the first part, and then Jesse can talk about our database and our program processing software that actually calculates and then we pull the data from.
Yeah, so we use a program called EE Rebates, and our service territory in Washington is broken down into 3 climate zones. And to Caleb's point, we invest a lot of research and development into calculating based on what climate zone a particular location is in, how much, like, for example, how much like per square foot of attic insulation, if you install in this climate zone, will be saved. And then based on the application of where our house is, let's say 2,000 square feet, attic is, X number of square feet. So based on those numbers and the ahead of time research and development that we did, that's how we spit out a number of, so based on the attic size and the estimated savings per square foot of attic insulation, we have our estimate for that location. And then so these numbers here on the screen are coming from every location that was serviced in Washington for Cascade Natural Gas that had attic insulation. We just accumulate all those numbers and based on the estimates.
Last part of that is we're really benefiting from the EE Rebates processing software that Cody Thompson led the effort on, helping to construct and build, and the rest of the team, of course, helped with that process. We've been using that software for just over a year now, and it just seems to be working fantastic. I think that's a part of, not the only reason, but a part of why we're seeing some fantastic numbers on the previous screen. And it also makes pulling data like this, which looks like it should be pretty simple, actually pretty simple, whereas in the past, it really wasn't that way. We were kind of handicapped by our last software. So a lot of pieces there to think about. Donald, any follow-ups, or are we getting to the right point? We're good? Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you for the question.
What's the difference?
We welcome any other questions on the residential program if they are ready. All right, excellent. Once again, thanks to the team. This is a gangbusters year again. I can't say enough compliments. This is great things to see, to be saving very cost-effective energy and therms for our customers, the climate, and the company. It's a win-win-win scenario. I'm a big fan of what we do. All right, we're moving on. We actually shifted up our organization for these meetings going forward. Our plan will be to have our low-income weatherization typically being the next topic on the list here. If Noemi and Sheila and the team are ready to go, we can get started here.
Good morning, everybody. This is Sheila McElhinney with the Cascade Natural Gas Rebate Program, and today I'm reporting on Q1 of the Low Income Weatherization Program in 2026. So we've finished 13 projects. That consists of 49 measures. We have our regular WIP payments at about $128,000. The avoided cost that went into that 13 projects is about $169,000. Here we have listed the project coordination fee and indirect rate that were dispersed to the agencies. The total project cost with admin thus far is about $415,000. We have saved about 2,900 therms. The average cost per project is pretty darn high, running in about almost 32,000. And we have a large range of project costs, from a single furnace to half a dozen measures, ranging between 10,000 on the low end and about 66,000 on the high end. Our average number of measures per project is about 3.7, looking good. And we're averaging about 224 therms per project. Do I have any questions? Any questions on Q1 of 2026? Wesley.
Thank you. Since you asked, one question I have, does this include both the traditional agency projects as well as the new third-party administrator projects? I know that's a very recent change.
This is just the typical weatherization incentive program, and Noemi's going to cover the pilot.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Can we have the next slide, please? Here we have a table that shows what the agencies estimated their completions would be for the year, and compared to what's happened thus far. So we have 3 projects from CAC, 4 from Coastal, 1 from Northwest Community Action, 1 from Opportunity Industrialization Center of Washington, and 4 from the Opportunity Council. And it's coming along. It's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's slower right now, but there are fewer projects coming in at this moment, I think, because the agencies are busy spending down other funds. Questions on this slide? Right. Okay, Wesley.
One thing that stands out to me, I see for the community action, I think it's community, might be center, I forget, but it's, the estimated homes was 10. I see the actual so far were 3. And it looks like they are pretty close to what they've estimated their budget to be. So I guess can you just shed some light on how they're so close to the estimate when the number of homes is, less than half? I don't, just based on glancing at the rest of this, it doesn't look like that pattern comes through with the rest of them as
Yeah.
pronounced. So yeah, I'm just curious what's going on there.
The work is costing more than they thought, or perhaps they're including more measures than they anticipated. Are you referring to CAC where it says 10 estimated homes and 3 actuals?
Yes, yeah. So it's
Okay.
less than half of their estimated homes, but
Yeah.
close to the full estimate for what their budget would be.
Yeah, I think estimating 10 homes and thinking it's going to be $10,000 per home is it's just an underestimate of what it costs to weatherize a home today. I can't really speak much to it except for to say the cost of weatherizing the homes is more than they anticipated.
Yeah, that's helpful. So I'm hearing just take the estimates with a grain of salt. So
Yes, that's
yeah,
a good way to
okay.
put it. Very good.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. You can go to the
Thank you,
next
Sheila.
slide. Noemi will take over.
Thank you, Sheila. And Wesley, I'll kind of add to the response there. The estimate on the 10,000, I think when we receive those, we try to do those end of year and coming into the new program year. And there's a lot of what ifs in that moment with the agencies as far as what their funds look like. So if they run out of funds early on or something shifts, they've already submitted their estimates to us. So it's a little hard to, it gives us a baseline, but that 10,000 is less and less realistic now, since we're not seeing projects lower than 12 to 15,000. So we do a lot of fluctuating. They usually check in like mid-year to make sure that they're okay on funds. And if they need an increase in fund, they usually get an email okay from us. All right. We go pilot. And actually, Caleb, I'm actually going to hijack your presentation here a little bit because I added a slide. So if I could share my screen real quick.
See if it'll let you, or I can somehow give it over. There we go.
Okay. Can you see my screen yet or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so pilot results. These are our final results. Our pilot ended February 28th. We had a total of 5 projects completed during that period. As noted in previous meetings, it took us a little bit of time to kind of ramp up and get the contractors trained and get all the paperwork ready to go. And then just the onboarding process and getting those projects out. Number of measures completed were 26. The total pilot cost was 140,000 for that year. And the average cost was 28,000 per project, which is coming in a little bit lower than what we saw for the standard program. You'll note that the range in projects did start off around 12,000. I believe the highest one we saw was a little bit over 40,000, maybe 47,000 on that. Average measures were 5.2, and then therms per project average wise was 249. We currently do have 2 projects in the queue and are working on sending more out to contractors. We did have 1 contractor that dropped off during the pilot. They just noted that it was too much paperwork, and it's kind of similar to what agencies have expressed on the standard program when working with their contractors. It is really heavy on paperwork and the admin portion and going on the Department of Commerce specs. So we did have one of them fall off, but still have some strong performing contractors into the coming year. And that's really all we have on final results for the pilot. I'll kind of leave that open for questions, and then I have a next slide on the actual forecasting for the coming year. Okay, and I don't see any hands, so I'll move forward to the next slide. Okay, so with pilot forecasting, and I guess I'll add a caveat here, looking into this next year. So all of the agencies were part of notification in the last couple of months that we had a tariff revision. This included some changes to the standard program, which added a cap on health and safety and repair costs, but also included our WIP pilot standard pilot to become a standard offering. It was approved as of April 10th with staff. So this will now become a regular offering, and we'll kind of stop referring to it as a pilot program moving forward. But we do have early on numbers. They were completed maybe a couple projects that weren't included in the forecasting since we did this early February. So looking forward, we do have a forecasting of 48 projects for the coming year. And you'll note the total expenses there are 769,000. That came in a little bit lower than we expected since we did budget about 1.2, but then again, costs fluctuate. So this is a early forecast on what we're looking forward to in the next year. And performance for these contractors. That's taking into consideration that we did have a contractor drop off, and we don't have a cutoff as to how many contractors we'll have on board. So if we find additional third-party implementers that are interested in the program, we'll continue to kind of bring those on board and have some backup plans in case some contractors don't have the bandwidth. But this is what we're looking forward into 2026, 2027 program year. We're excited. We noted in the filing when we originally filed that even completing one project would be a win for us, since these were customers that were kind of waiting on an internal wait list for over a year, that we just a lot of our agencies partners didn't have the capacity to take on more customers. So being able to kind of work hand in hand and supplement that program has been a win for us so far. And then I'll just leave it at that and leave it open for questions in case there's any follow-up. All right, and I don't see anything in the chat, so I'll hand it back to you, Caleb. I'll stop sharing here and stealing your show.
Yeah, great update, and kudos to Noemi, Sheila, and Shristi for leading the way on the weatherization program. Really important, really impactful. I love seeing these updates on the new things we're trying. I hope it keeps growing. Okay. And we're actually moving on to the last section of this meeting with just a couple of updates, maybe 5 or so minutes worth. I don't have a slide prepared, but I warmly welcome any ad hoc topics or conversation that we'd like after this, and then we can end the meeting rather than taking a little 10-minute break like is common. So our regulatory updates, I believe I've got 3 slides for us here. First one I've mentioned a couple of times. This is just a confirmation that our bioconservation report is underway and things are progressing as expected. Those in our advisory group will be receiving a copy of that draft via email by May 15th, which will be filing 30 days later on June 15th. The whole intent of providing this 30 days in advance is to please help us make that document as great as possible, catch any issues, inconsistencies, improvements, any suggestions that you may have. We'd love to see them. We spend a lot of time working through these things, so making them as good as possible is our intent. So thank you for any help if you have the time to review that document. The next one, this has been mentioned a couple of times here. We had our new program rebates listed that went into effect for installs on or after March 15th for our residential as well as our commercial industrial programs. The reason this is on here is because I believe it's a really big deal. This has been 2 years now in the making of updating our conservation potential assessment, creating a conservation plan, and seeing where can we maximize cost-effective therm savings in order to, once again, benefit the company, our customers, and the environment. One way to do that is to increase the dollar amount of the incentives, of course, and that was our intent for this plan. So you'll see a lot of our measures perhaps even doubling, such as our furnace measures for the residential side. A lot of our installation measures went up between 25% and over 100%, making them extremely still cost effective, but also more enticing for customers to take on that full home approach. A lot of these measures last for up to 45 years of projected lifespan. So they're fuel agnostic. Oftentimes they're nearly customer usage agnostic. They're just fantastic offerings. So we think by making these changes, we'll just be benefiting the customers' homes, their comfort, and of course, all the other things I mentioned here for a long time to come. Those who have been on our website have likely already seen the updates, but we've made these new documents, including Spanish translations for or I should say most, if not all of them. I believe some may still be in process. We've also updated the user interface and the logistics of the website, removing old information, having more pertinent information near the top, so less scrolling is needed, trying to call out with different graphics and images so customers don't have to click through links, those sorts of things. We're trying everything we can to make these improvements, but perhaps some of them weren't improvements. If you believe that's the case, let us know. Maybe we can make a change. And of course, if there's any questions, just generally speaking about our program planning pieces or our rebates or our measures, jody.albert@cngc.com, one of our analysts. She's a great resource to talk through them or perhaps help us make improvements for the future. This is a new one. This is perhaps the most important slide of this 3-slide section. This is our 2027 Conservation Potential Assessment. We haven't talked about this yet because we're way in advance here, but I think it's important. So as I mentioned maybe 20 or 30 minutes ago, our Conservation Potential Assessment is something that happens every 2 years where we evaluate the therm savings, cost benefits, those sorts of things of measures. We file that right around June of odd years, so a little bit over a year from now. In the past, we've started that work with the July advisory group meeting. However, I would like to request that we start that work even sooner. There are some things going on here in the background, such as aligning with our integrated resource planning process, which I think is a benefit for us, however, requires us to start a bit earlier. We're also just seeing some internal legal reviews taking longer time, and I'd also like to expand the scope a bit on some of our, say, electrification measures, fuel neutral, fuel switching, those sorts of measures, which I believe have been included in the CPA, but perhaps not delved into as much as I'd like to. So my specific request to this group is I would like to begin working on that CPA as soon as possible, which starts with contracting. We intend to begin that contracting conversation with ICF, who has completed the last handful of conservation potential assessments. They're fantastic partners. They help us achieve these things, answer questions, provide the feedback and input actually at these advisory group meetings going forward. So I'd really love to continue that work with them. I anticipate beginning contracting here shortly this month and hopefully kicking off the work on having some sort of substantive start or plan before the July meeting where we can provide some more updates to it. I'll take a moment to speak a little slower and provide pause if there's any thoughts or input on continuing that work with ICF. Otherwise, my team will start taking action to get the project started. Yeah, Wesley.
Yeah. I think it's more or less consistent with other other companies that, will contract with the same contractor over a couple biennium. But one of the things that staff, likes to know is, I guess, how far back the contracting work has been. So I guess, can you just add a little bit more detail for the last, 2 or 3 CPAs? Has ICF been the same contractor? Yeah, I guess how often do you switch up the cadence?
Yeah, good question, sir. So ICF has been the last contractor for, I believe, 3 CPA cycles now. Prior to ICF, they were called the AEG. It's the same team, just being acquired by a company. They use the load map forecasting model, which I believe is just a fantastic model that gives us a lot of those intricacies and deep dive opportunities into each of the specific measures that's reviewed. I believe 2017, if my memory is correct, or 2018, we were using a model called Teapot, which is from a different company, but I honestly can't recall who that consultant was. So it's been a handful of cycles with ICF in the past year, Wesley.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. I think I might need to go and go back and discuss, I guess, if staff has a position on that. Keeping in mind that Cascade has already, made efforts so far to do this work, and we don't want to do anything to upset that. So yeah, I'll note that as something to get back to you on. I'll reach out to Jody and you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Wesley. And of course, a part of the conversation which we intend to have with ICF is incorporating some of those requests which have come up from your team and the staff at WGC, making sure we implement some requirements to have, I believe it was up to 3 model reruns or 3 alternative scenario runs in our CPA, making sure to incorporate opportunities for feedback and adjustments. Having the ability to view the model and some of the raw outputs there. These are all things that we intend to include in the contract, which is going to extend that timeline for it. That's why the timeline moving up makes a lot of sense here. Do you have an indication, Wesley, when we may hear back from you?
Yeah, I'll just really quick, probably today.
Oh, that's fantastic. Anytime next week or so will be fantastic here. So we'll hold off until we hear back from your team, Wesley, and we can have further conversations or any suggestions we're warmly welcome to.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other feedback or input for us here on those last couple of regulatory update slides?
Yeah, this is Wesley again. I did have one. I was holding off to see if it would come up, but I guess the one question: can you remind me when the Q3 CAG meeting will be? I think you mentioned July. Oh, there we go.
We're right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my second question then is I guess how the meeting will align with the upcoming 24-25 VCR. There'll be quite a few updates in the VCR. Showing how Cascade performed over the last biennium. And potential, just updates on achievement. And, staff will be reviewing the VCR. There'll be a whole process regarding that. So I'm just wondering what kind of engagement Cascade is looking to do around that beyond providing the draft on May 15th.
Yeah, our intent is to provide that draft with a fully outlined narrative of what we're seeing, what came to fruition over the past 2 years, some of those therm-saving timing adjustments like we mentioned, as well as the adaptive management strategies that have gone to in the past as well as the future. So that's our current intent, is to communicate that via the draft and receive any input via writing from our staff, of course, from the rest of the advisory group members. If there's any other recommendations from your group, we'd be warmly welcome to those as well, Wesley.
I don't have a specific recommendation. I'm just thinking through the other timelines from other companies, and I think the third meeting of the year falls a little bit closer potentially, but I think this should be fine as long as the draft is provided and parties have enough advance notice to review all the fun VCR updates. So thank you.
Yep, certainly. And from a very high level, we are anticipating that we hit our biennial therm savings goal at the portfolio level at a very cost-effective measure. Our current draft numbers are indicating a really high level of direct benefit to consumer, approximately twice the level of which we are, I think informally, but in writing, that we've been desiring to meet. There's a lot of great things happening in terms of reaching different customers, a higher customer count, making sure that we are doing great quality controls, those sorts of things that'll be in that document. So hopefully there's a lot of fruitful information in there, but of course, any feedback to make it better, we're warmly welcome to.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think the fact that Cascade did so well makes this all a lot more easy, obviously. And so, I don't have any concerns. So thank you.
Sure. You can just let us know in that same time frame, maybe. You can let us know if you've got any suggestions for us here. Excellent. And this was my closing slide, but as mentioned, if there's any ad hoc topics, conversations we'd like to have, this is a great time here. We're just at the top of the hour, so there's plenty of time in the meeting agenda if we'd like. I'll leave it open for a minute. Otherwise, we can read what's on the screen here and see each other here in about 3 months. Okay. Looks like we're able to close out the meeting here. Of course, if anything changes, any questions or conversations arise, please reach out to me. I'm a pretty friendly person typically. It's caleb.reimer@cngc.com, and I can help facilitate questions to Noemi's team, Brian's team, whatever it may be. We can definitely facilitate that. Appreciate everyone's hour or so on the call this morning. Once again, the whole goal of these is to share where we're at, help us get better over time. please help us. That's my message. If you've got anyone else that should join this meeting in the future, let us know. We can get them added. If you've got any other suggestions in terms of format, content, whatever it may be, send them my way. We can make adjustments before July happens. All right. With that, we'll close out. I say thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.